I'm not sure how to explain it other than it just shuts off. I'm not sure why. I just bought this new case and more fans in case that was the issue, and I reapplied thermal paste, and now I'm not sure. It is still just shutting off randomly. It used to throttle really high up and then shut off, and now it just shuts off. For example, I was 8 minutes into Call of Duty and it just shut off. But I think it would be a good challenge to try and fix. I have some tech-savvy friends who could not figure it out. This here is that viewer's gaming PC, and boy, oh boy, that was a very long run-on sentence. Jokes aside, nobody wants their computer randomly shutting off in the middle of a gaming session. If you ask me, that's one of the worst times for a PC to be unstable. And judging from the description, it sounds like this could be either temperature or power related. If your system is randomly, abruptly shutting off without warning, not even blue screening, it's probably either getting way too hot or there's some inconsistent power delivery where the system just, as a failsafe, kills power entirely to preserve components. I don't know for certain that's what's happening here, but we'll definitely give it a shot. Are you ready? Stay with me. To get rid of that annoying Windows activation watermark, head on over to VIP SCD Key. Purchase a Windows 10 Pro OEM key for a fraction of the price of retail. Just use a secure payment method like PayPal, enter your product key into your PC settings window, and say bye-bye to the watermark. And be sure to use our offer code SKGS for a sweet discount. Let's kick things off by addressing the most obvious physical issue head on. This is a very dirty, cluttered system. It hasn't been cleaned in a good while. It would actually be a close candidate for a PCDC video, but we're not filming those yet. I do think we're gonna have another season of that in case you're wondering, but it's too hot to film outside right now, and it rains every other hour in Florida, so we're gonna give it maybe another month or two. The cable management is very cluttered. It's just, you can tell, there wasn't a lot of time spent to make this look clean, and there's a lot of dust caked up, and especially these older Corsair fans at the rear and up top. Something else I noticed right away, this case is actually not a Corsair case. It looks like a 5000X, but it isn't. It feels a lot less premium. It feels a lot cheaper. The steel, whatever this is, stamped steel, is very cheap feeling. The paint job is pretty iffy. There's a lot of bubbles everywhere. There's no branding of any kind, so it looks like just a clone. The owner actually swapped his components into this, thinking this would improve his airflow, but you can see that front panel is rather restrictive, just a big slab of glass along the front. He could have mounted things along the side next to the motherboard, but the way they are now, I don't really imagine temperatures are all that fantastic, so we'll probably end up upgrading this for him in the process. It does have, like I said, that beefy RTX 3080, which needs no introduction. The CPU it's paired with is actually fairly capable as well, although the cooler is certainly lackluster, and we do have some mismatched DDR4 DIMMs, although this isn't really the end of the world in terms of performance for an older Intel SKU. And speaking of Intel SKUs, he decided to pair an unlocked one with a B series chipset, which means he can't actually overclock. Again, not the end of the world. He might have done this intentionally. It just wouldn't have been the way I did it. So if you're wondering if that's normal or not, typically no, because you're not going to be able to squeeze out extra juice if you really want. I personally don't overclock. I just don't see the benefit versus the potential issues, blue screens down the line. I need stability, and that things are stable, it's stock, so I'm fine with that. But your mileage will of course vary depending on the chip as well, because you've got binning and other things to worry about. Enough with the rambling though, let's get this thing powered on. Apparently it posts and loads into Windows. I do have his password so I can sign in. We're gonna download Furmark and more than likely a CPU burn-in test as well, just to test stability, because I think that's where we're gonna start seeing issues. I think it's about time to power this thing on. I expect it will post, like I said, from what I was told. Okay, a bit of a delay there. Let's see how we're faring. So all of the fans are spinning. Graphics card fans are spinning. Right, so we should have gotten a post already. And I'm concerned that, what do you have, a VGA light? Oh, geez. This card is not even sitting correctly in the slot. It's like halfway out. Shame on me for not noticing the obvious. I thought the card was just sagging extremely in this case. I didn't think it was seated wrong. But you can see those golden fingers there. They are exposed. They should be completely covered by that PCIe slot. So this card is it's just not sitting correctly. So of course we're not gonna get a picture out. Dope. You can really see from this angle just how extreme the graphics card sag is, but I chalk this up to just the case not being the highest quality. The card is quite dirty. You can see a lot of dust caked up in the fin stack, but I'm more worried about this down here. But thankfully, we don't see any cracking or splitting along this connector That is a relief. The slot also looks okay, although this little retention arm here, yeah, it's broken. Luckily though, this isn't a necessity. If one of these breaks off on your board, it's okay. Just ensure the card is fully attached to the chassis and make sure that those golden fingers are slotted all the way into the slot. You should still be fine. Let's try this again then, shall we? Holy cow, with the cables everywhere, it's gonna be a bit tough. So it's gonna slot all the way. It should slot all the way in. I can tell you though, the tolerances of this case are not doing this card any favors. I'm actually starting to see why it was sitting so awkwardly before. I can't get this screw to thread through the holes in the case and the card at the same time without the card unslotting itself from the motherboard. This is some of the worst tolerances in a PC case I've ever seen.
A few moments later.
The card still sags a fair bit, although I was able to eventually wiggle those screws at the rear into place. So if anything, this just reaffirms the point. I'm gonna be swapping this case out. 100% done deal. He can swap everything back if he wants, but I think he needs a proper case with proper tolerances. Let's try this again then. So power on, power on. God, even this power button is just built so poorly. It's like the very cheap kind of spring-loaded switch, you know, so it wobbles around a lot. Just all around not getting great vibes. The card sits very crooked in these little slot holders as well at the rear. But hopefully we get a sign of life now. I just realized this LED is on. I'm not sure if it was on before. Maybe it was. Someone roll the footage back. Come on. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. I'm not going to say mission accomplished yet because I think there's still more to come, but that was alarming to say the least. Now we're only just on the Windows home screen, but I can definitely hear this CPU cooler ramping up. Even at near idle conditions, it seems like temps aren't the most friendly. So we're definitely going to be running some burn-ins. Now I'm too lazy to enter my license for ID64 on this person's rig, but I do have the CPU temperatures off to the right here, including FPU and cache, and we're going to go ahead and run a bit of a burn-in. This isn't a super intensive workload here that we'll be running, but if we get throttling here, I mean, I could see this happening in games as well. The system is already extremely, oh yeah, 90 degrees Celsius already on core 4. Yeah. Overheating, throttling, 2%. This cooler is just nowhere near beefy enough for this caliber CPU. For obvious reasons, I won't let this run much longer, but you can see occasionally cores touch 96, 97, even 98 degrees Celsius I've seen. This is not good. It's a cause for concern. Even if AMD or Intel tell you that it's okay for a chip to run at 95C or close to T-junction, it's just not advisable in my book. So this needs to be changed. It's taken a fair bit for the CPU fan to ramp down. I've had the test stopped for about 2 or 3 minutes now and it's still chugging away. So I think that is our major concern. We'll tackle that, but the other thing I want to do before we start disassembling things is checking the graphics card stability. It's still possible that we have a graphics card thermal issue. I doubt it after what we've just seen, but I want to rule this out before I swap things around. So I'm going to open up Furmark, which shouldn't stress the CPU much at all, so I'm not worried about, you know, super high toasty temps there. Oh, and you probably saw in the earlier clips, I had the left side panel off for the ID64 burn-in. Granted, the rear fan and the top fan were disconnected. The front fans were still on, and this is still what I would call a best case or close to best case scenario, more of an open air test bench. The CPU was still overheating to the extent that it was as quickly as it was. That means that if this system is, say, sitting on the floor, maybe there's a lot of furniture around it, it's more or less suffocating for air. This case, in terms of airflow, is not ideal either. Then I could see the system randomly shutting off right after 10 or 15 minutes of gaming, which is what the owner described. While playing Call of Duty, after 15 minutes or so, the system just completely shut off. And like I said, more often than not, this happens when either power delivery is inconsistent or you have an overheating issue, right? It's killing power in an effort to save components. It's actually a good thing. It's good that systems do this because otherwise your chip might literally, I don't know, explode, maybe? You could definitely cook eggs with it. I don't know if it would explode, but You get my point. I mean, you're talking about serious, irreversible damage if it runs any hotter for any longer. Now, it hasn't been too long yet, but you can see our graphics card temps at the GPU are around 66 degrees Celsius, and otherwise full load here with Furmark and with the left side panel off. I'd say this is exceptional. Not seeing any cause for concern here. I doubt the graphics card at this point is the reason why the system was shutting off. So despite the horrid sag, this thing looks to be totally healthy. The fans are spinning. It just needs a little bit of a cleaning. Even our chart down below here showing temps have totally leveled off. Again, I don't expect an anomaly of any kind. So we're gonna go ahead and shut this off and power the system off completely in preparation for our case swap and cooler swap. This is no small feat. We're practically rebuilding a system and upgrading it along the way. We also need to clean it along the way. So come along for the ride, I guess. Whew. It has been a very long afternoon, but this system looks leaps and bounds better. So just aesthetically, what we changed up were the case and the cooler. Of course, sticking with Be Quiet here, they are a product sponsor of the Fix or Flop playlist, but it doesn't hurt that they create some really good products for us to use here. So the 500FX you guys have seen, a tried and true mid-tower with plenty of airflow, plenty of RGB, and an affordable price tag considering what you're getting. It's really hard to make any build not look good in the 500DX or FX. And of course, the CPU cooler, the much needed correction. I expect this is going to lower CPU temps drastically at stock conditions. By the way, I didn't mention earlier, his BIOS settings were all stock. I did check that before disassembling the rig. So he wasn't doing any manual overclocking, not that he even could anyway with a B series motherboard, but I wanted to make sure that there weren't any weird shenanigans going on in the BIOS. The Darkrock Pro 4 is an absolute beefcake of a CPU cooler. It's a dual tower cooler. It comes with 2 fans, very quiet, especially under a heavier load. You'll start to notice the benefits of premium fans. It's got an overall stealthy look to it, ceramic black coated fins, and best of all, a 250 watt TDP. That's gonna make all the difference, I think, for this rig. Many of you have been asking for before and afters, in particular when it comes to case and cooler swaps. You wanna see how much lower we got these temps. We even cleaned things up a bit, so I imagine that might help, although not to a significant amount in my experience. Just a bit of light dust isn't gonna change your temperatures all that drastically. So first things first, we need to make sure that it turns on. And that's a good sign. I'm gonna go ahead and cycle the colors here. We can do that. Let's see here, I'm looking for white. Yes, there we go. Very plain, neutral look, but I think it gets the job done. We are getting, what is this? Is this a DRAM error? It should be in Windows. I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. Maybe it's trying to get us into the BIOS. Okay, I'm having a bit of a problem now where the BIOS is just randomly freezing. I can't get past the recovery window either, and it's saying there's an invalid file directory in Windows, which I doubt is actually the case because we were literally just in Windows like earlier today. So this is odd. I think it might have something to do with the RAM swap, since that's the only real hardware change we made, was just changing which slot each of those DIMMs was in. So to rule them out entirely, I'm going to try two 16 gig sticks of DDR4. I actually don't have a lot of DDR4 left, and 16 gig capacities per DIMM, but these are super special, super blingy from G.Skill. Yep, there we go, straight into Windows. It's really odd. I don't understand. I mean, maybe the fan was just putting a bit too much pressure on one of these DIMMs and that was what was throwing the code. I've never seen that before, but I'm really glad that I tried the DIMMs. Like I said, it was the only hardware change we made apart from the cooler, which shouldn't affect anything software related. So, man, that was a shot in the dark, but it worked out. Screw it then. I'm gonna try one more time with his original modules. I'm just gonna put the fan like gently on top of the DIMMs. We'll see if that works.
12 seconds later.
Wow, now check this out. We're getting a boot loop. So you saw that little skip of lights there. It goes straight from red to orange. Now it will hang on orange for a good while, maybe about 20 seconds or so, and then it will pivot back to red and then right back to orange and stay there, just like that. So it's just boot looping, and I don't know why. It's like it hates this order of operations here. Maybe it wants me to swap them back around for whatever reason. Maybe these newer DIMMs are trying to dictate how fast the old DIMMs need to be, and it's just not keeping up. Or is it? What? Ah, yeah, and then we get stuck on this again. So just a constant boot loop. No matter what I do, I'll hit F8, I'll hit escape, delete. It just kicks me right back into recovery, or it shuts off abruptly like that. This is really strange. I'm almost inclined just to dump his DIMMs and just throw some good ones in there. The gold ones should be fine for now. At least it'll free up 2 more slots for him as well. So the same amount of memory he already has in the system, should be 32 in total, but 2 extra slots available for upgrading down the line. I don't know what to make of that. That came out of nowhere. And all I can think of is it just doesn't like the order of the DIMMs. The problem is I can't swap the order back to the way he had it because of cooler clearance. So I really have no choice. He needs a new kit. So I've got the gold kit back in there. Boots straight into Windows, no problem. We enabled XMP. We've actually been running IDA64, and so far, not a single ounce of throttling, as expected. I'm sorry if I sound a bit lethargic. It's been an all-day filming day. That didn't come out right. And I spent almost 45 minutes just trying to figure out what the heck's going on with this memory. I will give him back both kits. He'll have these to take home. He can repurpose them. He can even swap them back in, sell the kit that I gave him. I don't really care. But at least the system works now. It's just very strange that the order seems to be the only thing preventing the system from working, and we kept getting that recovery error. It's just super strange. I haven't seen that before. Maybe you guys have. Let me know in the comment section if you have and what you did to fix it so I could pass that on to the owner. That would be useful information. So yeah, I'm not seeing any throttling at all. The CPU is chilling right now at around 60 degrees Celsius. It was a bit hotter at the start, but right now it's, yeah, we're looking at mid-60s for most of the cores. That's a very healthy temperature. We literally dropped 30 degrees on average roughly per core, just by upgrading to a much beefier CPU tower cooler. I'll let this burn and run for another 15 or 20 minutes. We are air cooled, so we should thermally saturate fairly quickly. I don't see a need to run FurMark again because the graphics card was already okay to begin with. The card is still sagging just a tad, and you could very quickly fix that with a bracket of some sort. But overall, very happy with the way it looks. I mean, it's such a premium look now compared to what we were dealing with before, even on the cable management side of things. It all cleaned up quite nicely. The things then we have swapped out for this build: the case, the cooler, the memory. It's almost half a PC, but I think now it looks so much better. Heck, it's stable, it doesn't throttle anymore, and it's super quiet at that. So really happy that the viewer is going to have something to take home that's actually going to work and hopefully not crash on him. I did off camera run some preliminary tests with the power supply. Everything there seems to be fine. Like I said, I let the burn and run for about 30 minutes and I didn't see any throttling. Temps were very stable at around 65 degrees Celsius across all measured cores. The first 4 cores were being measured in IDA64. So I think this was a win. If the owner, for whatever reason, still has issues, maybe it's game dependent or something software related that I didn't run into in my testing, that's something I will try to follow up with in a pinned comment. But I do suspect that the system was outright powering off because of the throttling that we saw very quickly in that IDA64 burn-in. So that was why we honed in on the cooler and upgraded him massively with the Dark Rock Pro 4. Speaking of, you can find these components linked in the video description if you want to check them out. Again, I want to thank Be Quiet for being a continued product sponsor of our Fix or Flop playlist. If you guys want to get involved, be sure to join our public Discord server, totally free. There's a lot of really good people over there, a great community. It is growing fast, and there's just so much stuff going on. Sometimes we even play games with guys in the Discord. It's very fun over there, and very constructive as well. If you need help or anything like that, there's a lot of very talented individuals who can point you in the right direction. If you want to support us on Patreon, that link is in the description. You'll find all of our socials down there, and I think that's about all I want to plug in this one. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning.